Hello YouTube, this is Neon, and the title of my talk today is going to be White Guilt in a Gay BDSM Context. That is a loaded subject. So, excuse me, I came out about being gay. And eventually I came out about being into S&M, being into BDSM, which I was in the closet about because there's so little information, and people who look at S&M and they don't understand it, they come up with harsh conclusions. When I came out to myself about being into S&M, I began to read, I began to study. I quickly found out that if it's safe, sane, consensual, legal, and fun, that there's nothing to be apologetic to anybody about. I began to read. I've been both a submissive and a dominant, but I prefer being a dominant or a dom. I prefer being a dom. That's what I enjoy most, although I will be sub again. I joined a website that is for gay men as well as gay trans men who are into BDSM. And so a curious thing happened. I began to be solicited by white submissives who only wanted black doms. Like, why would you not want to be with people of your own race? I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And I began to sense that some of these men had white guilt. And eventually, one of these men spelled it out for me quite clearly. He basically said that his ancestors had destroyed my ancestors, which we know is true. Rape, murder, spreading disease, genocide, destroying the Native Americans' culture, literally razing it to the ground and rendering their culture ashes of what it once was. And many Native American nations were killed off, genocide. So that is the inheritance of whites, is certainly what he would say. And he felt bad about that. He felt guilty about that. Also, he felt guilty about white privilege. That white men occupy the lion's share, a disproportionately large percentage of high-paying positions, of executive positions, of chief executive positions, and have most of the money, most of the land, most of the businesses in this country. And so he felt guilty about white privilege, because white privilege is undeserved, unearned, unfair, immoral, unjust, unmerited. And people of color, we do not have equal opportunity in this country, specifically in private sector job market. He felt guilty about that as well. And in his mind, somehow he could assuage his guilt and make things right with black people, with African Americans, right? His form of making reparations by taking on a black dom who would dom him. To me, this is outrageous, unacceptable, completely illogical. Makes no sense whatsoever. So what I told him was, here's what you can do, since you have white guilt. You can give to the UNCF, and after you do, contact me. I'm going to want to know how much you gave, and I'm going to want proof. The UNCF is the United Negro College Fund. To me, if a white man has white guilt because of the inheritance that they have of what their ancestors have done, which is how they have their unfair position of economic superiority, and if they feel guilty about white privilege and they're willing to acknowledge that it even exists, they're a step in the right direction. Bill O'Reilly, who I used to like when I was a Republican, but progressively liked less, even as I was still a Republican, had this big tantrum about white privilege and that it doesn't exist, and that people who talk about white privilege, we're just stirring up the pot and we're trying to make problems. This is black people trying to invent something that don't even exist. They evil. Them black people, they invented white privilege, but it don't exist. We ain't got no privileges. To me, that's the attitude of most white men. So the fact that he was willing to admit that it exists and feels bad about it was a good thing. Him thinking that being with a black dom is going to somehow assuage his guilt, to me, was preposterous. So I never heard from this guy again. I don't know if he ever did give to the United Negro College Fund. To me, that would assuage his guilt. That would help make things right as far as making things more, at least economically, equal in this country. The more African Americans that go to college, the more opportunity we have to have the privileges that that most white people enjoy. The average white family in this country lives off of nearly twice what the average black family in this country lives off of. That means they have all kinds of privileges and opportunities that we don't have. Him giving to the UNCF could help correct that. And he didn't do it, I don't think. He certainly never called me back or contacted me again like he said he was going to. So this is an issue that sometimes affects white men who are with black women. Many times their idea of making reparations to the black community is, I'll marry a black woman and I'll treat her really well. It's not always the case. There's white men who are with black women just because they're gorgeous and smart and intelligent and they love them and they don't dislike white women. It just happened to be that the love of their life and their soulmate happened to be a black woman. Okay, I understand that. But there's other situations where in fact they think they're doing a service to the black community by being with a black woman. Ridiculous. His attitude of acknowledging a problem that really exists, right? What his ancestors did and white privilege is a good thing. His feeling guilty about it is a good thing. But his deciding how he's going to try to make things right is not a good thing at all. Okay? It's the same way people treat men and women who are homeless. We're going to help you. We're going to do A, B, C, and D. We're not asking for your input because we're not going to collaborate with you because we're superior to you. We're going to treat you like a stray dog or like a broke down vehicle or inanimate object that doesn't have any input. And this is what we're going to do to straighten up your life, rather than collaborating with a man or woman who's homeless. He did the same thing. Here's what I'm going to do to straighten things out with the black community. I'm going to be a submissive and I'm only going to take on black doms. So ridiculous. Again, very disdainful attitude towards people who are homeless and towards the African American community. The fact that this guy didn't even bother asking African Americans, what would we like? I can't speak for other African Americans, but for myself, him giving to the UNCF, him giving to the NAACP could make some things better, could assuage his guilt, and could help make things better for people of color. But he didn't want our opinion because he probably has this subtle, disdainful attitude towards us. I never heard from him again, and I've heard from quite a few whites who approach me, submissives, along these lines, and I just reject them. I don't even waste my time talking to them. It's preposterous. It's preposterous. To me, BDSM is sacred, and to misuse it and abuse it to try to get rid of one's guilt, to me, is also offensive, and I just won't deal with them at all. So that was a unique experience for me. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share, comment, commercial, recommend my video. Do one or more of those things. Thank you. Best wishes.